Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will start our discussion. So if you recollect, in last week we talked about uh, we talked about one concept we had covered. We talked about margin. If you remember, we discussed what is margin, how we estimate it, especially when we talk about investment in certain portfolio. And then we have also talked about margin call. Margin call. When you can expect to receive a margin call from your brokerage firm. And why? Because decline, and this margin call is basically function of decline, decline in your wealth, in your portfolio value. Why portfolio value has decreased? Basically, your holding or your asset value has come down. And we also talked about, if you remember, we talked about indifference curve, indifference curve, and there we discussed about opportunity set. We talked about two time period model, where in both time period 10,000 if any investor is getting, so what kind of possible outcome or opportunity set exists. And then we have seen how when we consider indifference curve of individual investor, at what point on indifference curve any investor would prefer to be. So this is what we have covered in last week. In today's session, what we will do, we are going to discuss EV theory given by Markovich, and then we try to see how portfolio theory has evolved. So certain models we will look at, and we'll see what theory exists once this Markovich has proposed expectancy and variance theory. So E stand here for expectancy. Expectancy is basically related to investors' expectation about return. So this is expectation about return. Return means whenever you create portfolio, and V is the variance, means this is basically function of risk or uncertainty. So this theory is very very good, very interesting theory. But if you want to understand it well, you will have to read the original paper. So we will continue our today's discussion on this. So already these points we have covered, so we won't be spending much time. And basically our focus in today's discussion would be on this later, point 4, 5, and 6. So already we have seen, market classification, what kind of, based on, type of trading, based on type of, market, type of dealer, speed, and then classification based on liquidity and other factors. So already these order types we have talked about, basically price contingent, or limit order versus market order. We have also talked about trading on margin or margin calculation, and we have also discussed how you can arrive at price that will at which you may expect to receive a margin call. So already this we have discussed in last week discussion. Now, this is what you have done in previous semester. So why I am referring to this point, because when we are going to talk about Markovitch portfolio selection theory, then understanding of this is going to help you up to large extent. So if we assume that return for certain portfolio is function of certain probability or probability of certain event, so we can calculate return for such portfolio considering the probabilities. If probabilities are not there, but historical information is given, so in that case, this approach we generally use to calculate average return. And also, when we talk about dispersion measure, basically we are talking about variance or standard deviation. So when historical information is given, this is how we calculate it. When probability is given, this formula we use and calculate it. So this is what you all know whenever you have certain kind of portfolio and probabilities are given. Now coming to the original theory of portfolio. This theory was proposed by Markovitch 1952. And what he has observed, he said basically every portfolio creation is a function of two different type of decisions. First decision or first stage is basically when we do some kind of observation or we analyze it, and then we create certain kind of belief. For example, what belief we are talking about here is you look at, when you want to select, a certain security, what generally we do, we, select in various security and we do some kind of observation. Observation means we do analysis, and then based on our analysis and past experience, certain belief we make it. Belief in sense whether it's if you add that stock, if you consider that stock in your portfolio, what kind of risk or return profile you may have. Basically about and how in future these securities will perform. And the second type of decision that we take in portfolio is creating portfolio or choice of portfolio based on first stage. In first stage, you are going to analyze the various securities, and then based on that, you are going to create belief. And in second stage, based on your observation in first stage or first decision, you create your portfolio. So in this particular paper is talking about creating portfolio or choice of portfolio. And this choice, when you are going to see this paper, this choice is function of expectation, function of risk or variance, and function of indifference curve. Indifference curve of investor. And if you remember in previous discussion, I focused on this when you have a scenario where in time period 1, you are going to get, any investor is going to get 10,000 rupee, and another time period he is going to get 10,000. So what possible outcome or what possible consumption pattern we can have or investor can have, we have discussed in last week. So with that understanding, we are going to see how individual indifference curve considering the choice of portfolio can be obtained. So that would be our understanding from this paper. So remember, in this paper, our focus is on choice of portfolio. So we assume that this part is taken care of. We are not worried about this. We are more concerned about creating portfolio. Whether return is positive, negative, that is secondary. So first objective is creating portfolio based on certain dimensions. So he made, few assumptions in this model, and because unless we understand assumption, we cannot relate with the theories. So first assumption he made that investor, try to maximize discounted expected, maximize discounted expected return. Basically, what every investor would prefer, he will try to maximize the return, given that certain, required return. So we'll see how they have done. And second, investor consider expected return a desirable thing and variance as undesirable thing. It means, so the second point is saying that variance is undesirable. It means investor would prefer to minimize or to select a portfolio with minimum variance. One way he will try to optimize a return, and at the same time investor would select those kind of combination where he or she can minimize the risk or variance. So this is how he has, started his discussion. So initially he started with two stock security, and then he has generalized for any stock. So as you know, the return from a portfolio is function of your proportion of investment in certain asset. So basically this is your stock return, and this return is basically function of your security, whatever security you are going to keep. And then this is the portfolio return, and this will represent is your what we call required return. DIT here is the rate at which your return on ith security at time t is discounted back to present time. Because if you look at this time period, so you can have n securities. So let's say we consider only security ith security. So for ith security at this time there will be some return. Let's say then here ith security R3I. So this is what security is. And DIT, let's say I'm giving one DIT is the appropriate discount rate. Basically, if you have some kind of a required return, let's say you assume that your cost of capital or some kind of cost is K. So DIT is basically 1/1 plus K. Here, when you talk about D2 for this security, this will be 1/1 plus K square. So you think of that D is basically some kind of discounted return for ith security, and there could be n security. Remember, there could be n security in your portfolio. So this kind of return profile you can expect over the period of t, because your time period, if you look, t is equal to infinity. T is equal to 1 to infinity, and your security is I is equal to 1 to n. So this is how he has set initial criteria. And second criteria, he has set that I, this I is the proportion that you are investing. It means X I is basically your investment. Assume that you are investing rupee 10,000 for creating your portfolio, and if I assume that you have n is your 100, means number of security. This is number of securities in your portfolio. So if this is 100, so XI is your total amount that you are going to invest in creating this portfolio. If we assume that you are going for equal weighted portfolio. Equal weighted means your proportion that you are going to invest. So let's say xi is your proportion would be x upon. So basically this is sigma I is equal to 1 to n. So your x total amount that you want to invest, this is basically your capital X divided by n. So in this case, what we are saying, this is your 10,000 divided by 1,000. So you are going to invest 100 rupee in each. Or proportion is xi is basically a proportion of your investment. So in that way, you can think of that. This is basically your how much proportion you are going to invest in certain security. So when you add, and here what we are saying, you are going to invest your all the money that you have in selected n security. It means if you are investing xi in given security, if I take sum of I is equal to 1 to n, it is going to be 1. It means all the money, all the wealth that you have, it is going to be invested. It means there is no other source of your return because you are investing all the wealth that you have at given point of time in creating this portfolio. So this is what assumption he has made. And you know, there is no short selling. No short selling means, because in short selling, if you remember, in case of short selling, in case of short sale, what you are doing, you are first shorting. Shorting means you are selling. It means even if you don't have this, you are going to short it. It means your investment is in negative, because without having that security. So this kind of condition initially he has said is not allowed. It means definitely you have in a positive investment in your portfolio. That's why this condition here, if you see this, and for given all xi is always going to be a positive number. Now with this, he has calculated, portfolio return expected, considering the different weights. This is how portfolio return he has calculated. You need not to remember, all these things, but you should know how he has done, because when you are going to know, when we are going to look at their final finding, we should have at least some idea about how Markovitch has arrived and at that expression. And then when we talk about correlation between two security, because risk to be calculated, so this is how return for portfolio can be calculated if weights are given, and these are basically your discounted return. Discounted return means your RIT divided by DIT. So this is nothing but your discounted return, because you have discounted for time value of money. So if you are getting a return of, let's say, 10 rupee, based using your appropriate discount rate, you discount it, then that becomes your expected RI, R1 or R2 based on your security. And security you are going to consider. So this is how your expectation, return expectation will be considering your appropriate discount rate. And now this is how we calculate, variance, covariance between two security. We take, this is your, return, and then we calculate, expected return based on probability. So basically this is deviation, and we can generalize it for nth term. And this is basically what we call it variance. And if you remember, when you are calculating variance for two security means, let's say, security A and security B. So your variance for return, let's say RA and RB, will be your how much you are investing. So let's say you are investing W1 in X1. So if variance is this, so this is your term number 1. This is your term number 2 plus 2 into covariance between these two, covariance, and then you have W1, W2. So this is how we have done. And if you remember, we talked about variance covariance matrix. We have discussed about how your variance covariance matrix will look like. So in initial session we have. So similarly here also we can generalize for n security how variance of particular Britain series will look like, where xi is the proportional investment. This is basically wi or weight, how much you are investing in security, and this is basically representing your covariance between two security I and j. So what he has found by doing this exercise, you will get two things. One thing is your portfolio expected return. Expected return, let's say we are representing with this, and you will also get your variance of particular portfolio, and this you will get, this you are getting at certain weight. Why I am saying weight? Because if you keep on changing, because your weight is basically xi. If you change your weight, let's say if we consider two security, so let's say security A and security B we are considering, for so that you will be able to easily relate. And in security A you are investing 5%. It means in security B you are going to invest remaining, so 60 this much. And when you have these two security, you can calculate expected return for portfolio. So let's say portfolio return you can calculate, and your variance as well, variance of this portfolio. So it means if you keep changing your these number, so let's say I make it 10%, it will become this. Why this? Because we are saying that xi, summation xi, I is equal to 1 to 2, I is equal to 1 to 2, because here we have two security, should be 1 or 100%, and also for all xi value should be a positive number. So using this condition, you will have basically various set of variance and expected return and variance. So you will get basically two coordinates, and these two coordinates will correspond to various proportion of investment in your security. And when we plot, let's say you for n security, you have n security, and for n security, and you have you got, let's say, 1,000 such combination, 1,000 combination. Why 1,000 combination? Because you can change value of xi. Xi is basically proportional investment in portfolio, proportional investment. So if you get this combination, and these combination can be represented like this, and when you draw, when you draw and circle, this boundary for this, that boundary we call it various opportunity set. This, so all these points will be here. So these each point represent your portfolio return and variance. Similarly, this is another point you can think of. Here you have another point. Here you have, so each point here is nothing but your opportunity set. Opportunity set of what? Opportunity set of risky asset. Because in this particular case, when he talked about his initial theory, he assumed that all the securities that investor is going to consider are risky asset. Risky asset means you can think of, investing in equity or investing in bond, having some kind of positive risk. It's not like, someone is investing and buying treasury bill, because treasury bill are, for government, benchmark bond. We assume that risk is, very less, or, sometimes we assume for simplicity zero. But in this scenario, in this particular case, he said there all these securities are risky security, and that's why, and that's why you will have, this kind of opportunities, this kind of possible attainable combinations. And when we draw, this outer line, this outer line, we call it, all the best possible combination of opportunity set, or we call it efficient frontier. This point we call it efficient frontier. And in your textbook, when in your textbook or whatever book you may be following, you will find this relationship like this. Here you will have expected return and risk on this axis, variance, basically variance on this axis. And so it means if I rotate this particular relationship, so this kind of EV combination, this is basically your opportunity set. So EV combination set you will get. And in this, from this point up to this side, we call it efficient frontier. Remember, efficient frontier. Why we are calling it efficient frontier? We will see. Because if you see, if I go below this point, let's say this is my point O. If I go below this point, let's say I'm at point B. So if I draw a line, let's say if I draw a line here, let's say this is intersecting here somewhere point, let's say H1. So this is my horizontal axis H1. So here, when you draw this line, what you are getting for same level of risk. This is what risk you are taking, this much. For same level of risk, if you consider any point here, you will get two possible set. For one set, your return is low. Here, if you see, your return B, which is low. So return for same level of risk that you are bearing or investor is bearing, there are two set of return. One return which is low, and another return is which is high. Same way, if you select any point here, let's say point C, if I select, you will get another point here. So that's why if we try to find out various such point below this, you will find for same level of risk, you have another best optimal point on above this point O. So that's why all those points from O up to this side we are calling as efficient frontier, because for same level of risk from here or here, these points will give you high return. These points, let's say this is your point E1 and your point E2. And that's why we are calling this as efficient frontier. And all these points are sub investment point. Why? Because you have better portfolio which can give you higher return at same level of risk. And here, if I want to know what would be my efficient frontier, this is what efficient frontier is, from here to here. Because for same level of risk here, if you see, for same level of risk, for same level, one level of risk, you have, you have one point here and another point here. Two return series you will get, two return possible combinations. This is, let's say, E expected return low and expected return high for point P. So that's why all the point here are inefficient, and all the point this on this dark side, we call it efficient frontier or effective effective opportunity set, because these are going to give you better return for same level of risk. And this is the basis of your all the theory, whether we talk about SML, security market line, or CAPM model, or you talk about index model, whatever model you may be discussing. This understanding of this opportunity set or combination of various risk and return point is the basis. And if you have understood this point, all your understanding of various theory related to portfolio is going to be very clear. Is there any question? Students, do you have any question? Fine. So I assume that you have understood this theory. Now, based on this theory, we can we can think of these combinations. As I said, that if you look at, if you have this kind of two, you have these two security. One is your stock, another is your bond, and you have stock riskiness is this, bond riskiness is this in terms of percent, basically standard deviation, and relation the correlation between these two is this. And if you invest 100% only in this stock and remaining zero here, this would be your portfolio mean return and standard deviation. And same way you can see there are how many possible set. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So around 11 to 12 possible set you are getting, and each set is basically one point that we have seen here. So variance, your expected return of portfolio. So each point is basically like this. And when we draw this envelope, and so this becomes your efficient frontier. So this is how you will get, and you can think of this is only two asset class or two asset, and when you have entire market, then it becomes very challenging, and that's why we need other sophisticated models. So using these information, if you draw this kind of opportunity set, you will get. So each point represent whatever point we what combination we are getting here in terms of risk and return. So basically, you can think we can see that point from here to this side is your efficient frontier. This is your efficient frontier. And why efficient frontier? Because every investor, if he is considering these two asset class in portfolio, they will try to be from here to here, because it will maximize their return. Otherwise, they will have suboptimal investment. So this is what we have covered. So in another paper, people have researchers have seen, when someone use international stock, it means global stock, and also is use a US based stock, this kind of envelope can be obtained. So this is what we have taken previous example, and researchers have found that when you make your portfolio more diversified, or when you make your portfolio having more asset classes from different geographic location, we can expect this kind of curve. Because in case of Markovich, he proposed theory and then simulated it and then tested it empirically. But these two graphs are basically empirical test of what Markovich has proposed. And here you see x-axis is your risk or variance in that case, and here you have average return or expected portfolio return. Now, coming back to generalization of our formula, because so far whatever we have seen that we have two securities, so it is easier to calculate. But we can generalize your portfolio based on n different asset. It is very simple. Already we have discussed, but we need to discuss because from here we are going to link our understanding about diversification of portfolio. So when you have n different asset class, remember n different asset class, and xi is the proportion of your wealth that you are investing in asset I. So in that case, your return, your return Pij is return, basically is the jth return of portfolio. So this is jth return of portfolio, where xi is the fraction of investors fund which is invested in ith asset having n number of different assets. So this represents your portfolio return of your jth return of portfolio having xi is an investment. And now we can use this expression for calculating the expected return. So we can calculate expected return in this way. Basically, if yields are known, and assuming that we assume that there is no discounting way. So in that case, this function can be used for calculating the expected portfolio return or portfolio yield. So both are same term. And now coming back to dispersion measure. In case of dispersion measure, this is what we know. Proportion that you are investing in security 1, variance of security 1, proportion you are investing into your variance. This is covariance between security, and these are the proportions. So here, what we are saying, x1 plus x2 is equal to x, which is equal to 1. This is what condition? This condition I am talking about. 100% is going to be invested. And second condition, we are saying xij is always a positive number. But from when this is 2 security asset, from 2 when it becomes 3, you will have more terms. So this is what we had earlier, but now you have 3 security, 1, 2, and 3. So this is what combination we have seen. Now additional combination you will have is this and this. So this is 1 combination, 2 combination, 3 combination. So that's why you have 2 additional factors that capture the covariance between 2 security. With this, so basically here, if you see, this is your a matrix, some kind of matrix. I can write like I or j is equal to 1 to n xj square sigma j square. So this term we can represent this, and this basically is your variance covariance term. So I can rewrite this as sigma j is equal to 1 to n, sigma k is equal to 1 to n, because we have n security we are assuming. We are investing this much proportion in j. We are investing this much proportion in another security k. This is the covariance between these two securities. And remember here, k cannot be equal to j, because when k is equal to j, we have already considered here this term. It will become your variance. So this is how we can generalize this equation into this. So for nth portfolio, this will be the expected portfolio return, and this will become the variance of generalized term for nth portfolio, nth security portfolio for our investor. So this is very easy. You can easily connect. Now, now our focus would be on this, because this is this is some kind of average portfolio return. Now we are going to discuss based on our combination, because chances are very likely, very unlikely, I would say, because it will be very rare event. Why I am saying rarest rare? Because this is what we got for portfolio variance. Let's say if we assume that your security J and K are all the security that you have considered. You have considered n security, the total n securities you have in your portfolio, and we want to know what if return would risk of this portfolio would be if your J and K, your all security, they are independent. When we are saying independent, it means the correlation between these two security is 0, or covariance or correlation between these two security is 0. So if that condition we keep, so we can substitute, so we can replace this with 0. So basically in that scenario, when all the security in your portfolio having 0 correlation or 0 covariance, in that case your portfolio variance will be this. It means this will be, because ideally what we want minimum variance. So we want to minimize your variance, whatever portfolio variance we have. So now we are trying to see what alternative, what best combination can exist. One combination can exist that you are smart enough to identify securities that are independent. There is no correlation or covariance. One goes, if you plot, scatter plot, if you put between two security return, there is no trend. So in that case, your portfolio risk will be this one. It will be only function of proportion of investment and variance or risk of individual security. So in that case, and when we further solve this, so here let's say if we are assuming that each asset you are investing equally, it means if your portfolio is equal weighted, equal weighted means your investment in all the n security is equal. So we can rewrite this basically in that case in equal weighted. What we are saying, xj is basically your 1 upon n. If 1 is 100%, so 1 upon n is the proportional you are investing. So I can rewrite this, basically this expression is nothing but xi square. And if we solve this, you will get this expression. And what observation we are making, that if you keep adding more and more security, so here two things we can say. This is what, that your portfolio risk is inversely proportional to number of securities in your portfolio, given that your X, J, K is 0, where J and K are not the same. Means this condition we are talking about. And that's why, if you remember, whenever we talk about portfolio diversification, means when you keep adding your number of security, your risk of portfolio will keep on. Risk can be standard deviation or variance. So here we are talking in terms of variance, so I'm using variance. And this is the reason, if you look at this mathematical expression, this is the reason why your portfolio risk will come down when you add more and more security. And you can think of a situation where n is 10 to infinite. In that case, this value would be very less. But again, there are certain limitations, because you cannot make, because your portfolio risk 0, given that if you have risky asset in your portfolio. We will discuss it in next slide. Can we move forward? Is it clear whatever we have talked about?
So there was a small doubt.
Yeah.
In the previous slide, you said that while taking the average, RPJ is the jth return on the portfolio. What does it mean by the jth return?
Which one?
In the first line, it says that RPJ is the jth return on the portfolio. So what does it mean by the jth return?
Why jth return? If you see this, let's say this is, I'm representing J. This is my J. J condition 1, 2, 3, 4. Like you have 12 combinations. Are you getting my point? So in all combination, you will have different combinations. So in that way, we are saying that if that is the case, so total for every proportional portfolio, you will have this kind of average return. Okay. And then so you think about, that's why I said here you have 3 dimensions. One dimension is your return, another dimension is your I, and another dimension is J. So in that way, if you think, then you will be able to relate. Otherwise, for simplicity, what you can assume that this return is, you can write as portfolio return is nothing but your combination of Xi and Ri, where Ri is nothing but your average portfolio return, and I is equal to 1 to n, for simplicity. I hope this will be clear to you.
Yes, sir.
So for simplicity, you can assume that we are talking about something like this.
Okay.
Right. And then here, this part, I believe it should not be a problem, because once you understand this generalized function, then from here to here, this I don't think you will have any problem.
So this is clear.
Okay, fine. So now this is the one scenario we have seen, scenario where your correlation between J and K is 0, or covariance between J and K is equal to 0, or they are independent independent assets. Now we further go and see if that condition we don't assume, because it is very difficult, even it's very difficult to identify n security or large number of security where the correlation between any two security is 0. If you can do that, I'm sure you can be very good portfolio manager. But that is very challenging task, whatever you do, because you have time dimension, you have security specific characteristics. So even at one point of time, you can identify probably next point of time or next time period, you will have different relationship. And that's why that is the biggest challenge for any portfolio manager. Anyway, this is again, this is our variance formula for nth security or n security. And here we are assuming that it is equal weighted portfolio. So we call it equal weighted portfolio, a portfolio in which your weight or your proportional investment is equal for all the security. And we can rewrite this like this, remember. And now if we make changes, because remember here when we can we can generalize, this is your, remember, variance covariance matrix. You will have let's say 1 1 1 2, and here you will have 2 1, here you will have 2 2. So in this kind of pattern, how many correlation and how many covariance you will have? So you will have 2 variance term, and how many covariance? 1, right? This is your 1 term. Basically, this R, both are same. So that's why we use 2. We add it. When we solve this, we get 2 into covariance between 2. So basically, in case of 2 into 2, 2 into 2 and 2 matrix or 2 asset matrix, we get 2 minus 1 covariance factor. Or if I generalize this for n cross n asset matrix, so you can think of n asset matrix. So you will have n here and here. So you will have n minus 1 covariance matrix. So now in this formula, this is what we got. And if we generalize this, so we up to this part, there should not be a problem. So here we divided by n minus 1, and here we are multiplying. So this term is basically telling that in this type of n by n variance covariance matrix, so you will have n into n minus 1 terms, basically n into n minus 1, not n minus 1, n into n minus 1. So this is what so if we calculate this, we can represent this as average of your covariance, portfolio covariance, average portfolio covariance. So we can rewrite this expression in terms of this will become your average variance of security. So this is representing, this will become your average variance of security for generalization purpose. And this term is basically covariance between 2 security divided by n upon n minus 1, because n upon n minus 1 will be number of covariance matrix. So this will become basically your average value. And that's why this will be your portfolio average covariance. Now again, if we refer to our previous discussion, so from this we are getting that this relationship, this is your one relationship, and another relationship we are getting is this. It means again, if you assume that n is 10 to infinite, again what we are concluding in this case, that when you keep adding more and more security in your portfolio, it will reduce your portfolio variance or portfolio risk. And this strategy of adding more and more security, we call it diversification. Already we have talked about. It means we have seen whether you consider assets are independent, or we consider that assets are dependent. It means there are certain correlation. Whenever more and more securities are added, your portfolio risk is going to reduce. And that's why we every time in your previous classes or previous semester, you must have studied that portfolio diversification leads to reduction in portfolio risk or overall portfolio risk. And this is the reason why it reduces. Otherwise, there is no reason to believe that your portfolio risk is going to be minimum. And this is the empirical example. So what example here we have that as we keep on adding more and more stock, here you can see your portfolio risk is going to be minimum. But it cannot be zero. Why? Because there are certain macro factor based risk that won't allow you to go to zero. Or another way, if I put that, we cannot have any portfolio where your number of asset is close to infinite. That is very difficult, assumption, very difficult kind of combination. And in this case, in this example, you can see, this is the percentage of risk of an individual security that can be eliminated by random selection of portfolio. So in US, up to this percent of security can be reduced. In a country like Germany, if you go for pure full diversification, you can reduce your portfolio risk up to 56.2%. It means portfolio diversification works, but again, across country, the amount of risk you can reduce is very different. In certain country like US, you can see it is you can not reduce you can go up to 73, whereas in this case in certain country you can reduce up to large extent. So we will stop our discussion here, and if you have any question I will take it. Otherwise I would like to discuss about your project.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, so here we are reducing risk by increasing this N,
Yes.
which we are calling diversification. Sir, if these sigma JK terms, if some of them are negative, can we say that that is hedging?
If you can do that, that would be good. Yeah, actually, that's what we want to identify. If you remember, if I put it, different way. So, I'm talking about two asset, risk, two asset portfolio risk. So, W1 sigma 1 square plus W2 sigma 2 square. I believe you are able to relate. Plus 2 W1 W2 covariance between security 1 and security 2 return. So here if you see, if I assume that correlation, so if I can rewrite, I can rewrite this in terms of correlation. So basically, if I write correlation will be sigma 1, sigma 2, right? And correlation 1, 2. So this is what, I'm replacing covariance with this. So let's say if I assume that you have perfectly positively correlated security. So it means this is equal to 1. So in that case, your portfolio risk will be W1 sigma 1 square, W2 sigma 2 square plus 2 W1 W2 sigma 1 sigma 2. So using A square plus B square, this will become sigma 2 whole square. So in this case, you see, in this case, this will be your portfolio risk when there is a positive correlation. Whereas whatever point you have identified, you are saying that what if we are able to get a stock which is perfectly negatively related. So let's say in that case, your portfolio risk will be W1 sigma 1 minus W2 sigma 2 square. And this is what we want to do. We want to achieve. We want to identify securities where there is a perfectly negative relationship. If you can do that, I think that would be, very significant, contribution towards portfolio creation. and everybody wants to identify what security is having perfectly negative relationship. It means if I draw this kind of curve, one security is going this, another security is going this. If this is the written pattern of this is your security 1 and this is for security 2, but it is very difficult to identify this kind of security, because say one stock is connected with another stock because of some reason, either they are in same industry, or there is some kind of connection in terms of inventory acquisition, in terms of raw material, in terms of some other reason. But if you can get purely negatively related security, I think what you said, your point is very correct. Fine. So any other question? Otherwise, I would like to spend some time on your this project. Fine. So I'm stopping my screen share. I'll share. I'll discuss about your project. It will take another 5 minutes. That's it. It won't take much time. I have already uploaded. I'm just sharing my screen. Can you all see my screen? Yes, students. Okay, so what I'm expecting you all are going to create a portfolio. Remember what we are going to do. You are going to create portfolio of your own choice. Any asset you can pick. Prefer to use those assets for which you can get relevant information. So 10 stock you have to pick. You have to collect data from August 16 to July 20. And there is a reason why I'm saying so. And so for this period, you are going to collect data for your stock, and you are going to analyze your stock for 3 sub-period. This, and this. You are collecting data from 16 to 20. You are going to analyze these 3 sub-period, assuming that your security, you are using equal weighted security. Means you are investing 1 by n. Means 1 by 10 is your investment in each security. And then what you will be doing, you will try to maximize. In Excel, you have various functionality. You are going to use the optimum weightage. So once you complete equal weighted, you are going to analyze your portfolio performance in these 3 sub-period, and then you are going to optimize it by using your any basic optimization function. It can be Excel, it can be in R also codes are available, or in Excel you have already optimization function. So this is what you are going to do, and this portfolio performance you are going to do considering the various parameter like portfolio return, portfolio risk, you have Sharpe ratio, you have Trainer ratio. So various measures are there. We will be talking about those measures in weeks. So you are going to analyze your portfolio in 3 sub-period, and then you are going to test your CAPM model, capital asset pricing model, in the selected stock. Basically, you can analyze your portfolio expected return. You can analyze your beta for your security. So beta you can calculate, and then you can test whether CAPM model can be used in your particular data set. So for this, you need not to separate it. This you can use for entire data set. Entire time period means from 16 to 20. And then you are going to use certain events. For example, there could be like in 2020, if you see, there will be certain in November 2016 we had demonetization. That is a macro event. There could be another event related to your stock. Probably it could be dividend related. Company has paid dividend, or company has made some kind of specific decision. It could be related to investment, which was in the news. So you have to look at how that event basically impact your portfolio return. You can assume plus minus 3-month window, and you have to look at what kind of portfolio performance you get around that event. So there is a paper by Brown and Warner. So I'm writing. You have event study Brown and Warner. I'll share it. I think Brown, BROWN, and Warner, I believe 1983 or I think 93. I think 1993 paper. So he has proposed event study. Basically, event is your reference point. T is equal to 0, and you are going to analyze what happened pre and post. So this is what we call it event study. So you are going to see whether any event, cause any impact on your portfolio or not. Because already in this case, when you are analyzing without any any event, assuming there is no event. And then when you have event, what kind of performance around those events you observe, that you have to do. And in terms of your deliverables, whatever data set you collect and analysis you do, that you have to submit. You have to prepare one report. It can be maximum of 15 pages, or it should be at least your report should be having such kind of explanation that if I'm referring, I should be able to make sense what you have done. So if you write properly, then I think it will take an hour, because you will be having certain tables. You will be explaining why your portfolio performance around certain event got gave you some abnormal return or risk. So those explanation you are going to add. So and then we will I'll schedule your presentation. If we are not able to do that, because in October you can see there are lots of holidays. So if we are not able to do that, so in that case, I expect that you are going to make a presentation of 5 to 10, maximum 5 minutes or so that you can explain your observation on this. Because bond data is not available, readily not available, and that's why I cannot ask you to create a portfolio on bond. That's why we will rely that understanding of these 10 stock connecting with various theory of finance like CAPM and event study will be helpful. So in this way you are going to do your project. Yeah, if you have any question, you can ask. Is there any question? Fine. So I assume that this is already I have shared on your in your general tab. So if you go to in your general tab, you will be able to see here. I have put that file.
So when do we have to present?
So you will be presenting in November 1st week.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, fine. So even if you think you want to make some kind of group, so you can make group of maximum 2. But it would be better if you try this as an individual project. So because you will get lots of holidays. So, and by doing this, you will ensure that even if you write in a paper format before graduating, you will have one paper that you can go and present in some conference. That will add value to your, your CV, and you can show that you have done something significantly in this particular course. So you see how much time you can give. If you are, you're trying to convert this in a paper, I'll definitely help you, and you will be able to definitely. I'll make sure that you can go and present in some of the good conferences in India or in outside. Fine. So yeah.
Sir, can you also share some of the sample papers, like from which we can get some reference about how to write all these kind of analysis papers?
So what I'll do, I'll upload a few papers, like Brown and Warner paper I'll share, and few more paper where you will find use of event study. Because here, when you are comparing, abnormal return is calculated. Brown has calculated. What he has done, he has used index model, and then from using CAPM model, he has calculated CAPM model. He has estimated, and then from there, realized return minus return from CAPM model. This is how he has estimated. So I'll share, don't worry, I'll share a paper that you can do to test event study, and other paper like Sharpe ratio and other, you can easily get it. If you Google it on Google Scholar, you will definitely get it. I'll also